All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at the absolute bedrock of business law today, what actually makes a contract legally valid. If you're a beginner studying business, this is definitely one of the most fundamental concepts you need to grasp. We're going to look specifically at the rules that govern how a basic agreement transforms into a legally recognized, enforceable document. Have you ever wondered what exactly turns a simple, everyday promise into a rock-solid document that the law will actually protect? I mean, we make agreements all the time, right? Meeting a friend for lunch or promising to help someone move. But the law doesn't step in if you cancel that lunch date. So, what is the magical line you cross that makes an agreement strictly enforceable by a court of law? Well, to answer that, we've got to turn to Section 10 of the Indian Contract Act of 1872. This act is kind of like the ultimate rule book. It determines the exact circumstances under which promises made by people become legally binding. According to Section 10, there's a strict 9-point checklist. Think of it as the ultimate diagnostic test for literally any agreement. To make things super simple, we're going to group these 9 essentials into 4 logical buckets: the handshake, the people, the rule book, and finally, the reality check. All right, so bucket number 1, the handshake. This is all about agreement and intention. The absolutely crucial point here is that you literally cannot have a contract without a proposer making a clear offer and a promisee fully, completely accepting it. It's step 1. One person has to signify their willingness to do something. That's the proposal. And the other person, they must accept that exact proposal. Without this basic starting point of offer and acceptance, the contract simply cannot be signed. But beyond just nodding and agreeing, both sides have to genuinely intend for this to be a formal, legal relationship. You gotta have good intentions toward each other. You can't just use a quote-unquote contract as a disguise to participate in illegal aspects or to try to trick someone. The law requires that when you make this handshake, you fully intend to be legally bound by the promises you are making. Moving right along to bucket number 2, the people. This one is all about capabilities and consent. Now, to actually have the legal capability to sign a contract, you've got to be a major. That means you've crossed the age of 18 and have the maturity to make your own decisions. You also have to be of sound mind. And here's a highly specific but honestly super practical rule. You absolutely cannot have consumed alcohol while signing. Seriously, no drinking and signing. This is just to ensure your mental state is perfectly clear when making these legal commitments. So on top of mental capacity, you need what's called free consent. Basically, both parties must agree entirely of their own free will. If someone is forced, coerced, or threatened into signing, that consent isn't free. The law explicitly states that a contract absolutely cannot be valid if there's pressure or threatening from someone else to make you sign it. And this whole idea brilliantly illustrates this legal concept called consensus ad idem. It's a Latin term, but it basically just means a meeting of the minds. Both people absolutely must be completely willing to start the contract with the exact same level of emotion and the same level of understanding. If one person misunderstands the fundamental terms of the deal being offered, well, there's no consensus ad idem. Okay, on to bucket number 3, the rule book. This is all about keeping things strictly legal. Inside this rulebook bucket, we have 2 really vital pieces to look at. First up is lawful consideration. That just means both parties need to have an equal benefit and equal promises to each other. Second is the lawful object. The actual purpose of your contract has got to be legal. It shouldn't create any distractions to our nature or, violate our existing laws. Simply put, you cannot, no matter how hard you try, write a valid contract for something the government has already officially categorized as an illegal or void activity. The agreement itself has to be on safe, legally recognized ground. And that brings us to our 4th and final bucket, the reality check. Here, we're looking for clarity and possibility. Listen, a contract really shouldn't be some kind of confusing puzzle. The terms and conditions need to be meaningful and honestly just easy to understand. Actually, it's the duty of both parties to use easy, meaningful language. Because think about it, if a judge can't understand what you actually promised each other, they definitely can't enforce it. Finally, the 9th essential on our checklist is the possibility of performance. You can't legally bind someone to do the impossible, right? The activities you're signing on for must be realistically achievable in the physical world. Otherwise, the contract is simply not legally valid. So now that we've walked through the entire 9-point checklist from Section 10, offer and acceptance, legal intention, free consent, capabilities, lawful consideration, lawful object, not declared void, certainty, and possibility, it leaves us with a pretty critical question about the strength of this whole legal chain. What if, say, 8 of these things are absolutely perfect, but just one is missing?
Well, the answer is super simple. The contract cannot be valid. A contract is really only as strong as its weakest link. If every single essential element according to Section 10 of the Indian Contract Act was fulfilled, only then is it actually called a valid contract. But if even one tiny piece is missing, like signing after having a drink or using super confusing language, the whole shebang loses its legal power. Which kind of leaves you with a provocative thought. Thinking back on the agreements you've signed or agreed to recently, how many of those daily contracts were actually missing a piece of this puzzle? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.